here, but keeping things, you know, keeping the information current or whatever. But before we get into that, I want to talk about yesterday's road rage incident that happened to me. I went up to do file my taxes. They're all done, and get money back, so that's good. And my brother and I, we went to get some dog food for my dog Lacey. And when I backed in, okay, there was a parking spot. I backed into the parking spot. Everything was good. And then we went in to get the food. We come out, and here's this freaking delivery truck parked right in front of the van, like that. Like literally, the nose of the van was here, and he was parked here, right? So I'm like, hey, there's a whole bunch of other spots he could have parked. There was 4 rows right there. Nobody parked there. He could have blocked that, right? But no, he blocks me. So you know what he does? Okay, you know what he does. So I pull up my camera, and he says, this is why I get road rage in the road rage van, right? So he sees me with my camera up, and he's like, hey, bud, do you want me to move my truck? I was like, it's okay, well, whatever, take your time. So no problem. So he jumps in the truck. He's like, sorry about that. I'm like, okay, sorry about that. And he goes, can you imagine that? Can you imagine that guy being like that to me? What a freaking Canadian. Sometimes, I don't know how I could live in this country. I really don't. It's an outrage. It was an outrage. So anyway, I waved to him. He said, we waved back, we smiled, and then away we went, So yeah, complete Canadian road rage there. You got to watch out for that stuff. But anyway, it was a good day out on the road. So I thought, okay, well, the world's perfect. The sun is shining. It's in the pluses now. I get home and I turn on RT and, SU-24s buzz the Donald Cook again. They got some really good footage this time. You can see it on the RT there. They're coming in the Soviet J patterns and across the bow. And, they come in really damn close. I got to say that I know that when they buzzed the Halifax about a year ago, a Canadian frigate, they came in pretty darn close to it too. I bet you feel the heat off the wingtips going by. You definitely the engines, but you definitely feel the heat off the wingtips going by. If you've been close to fighter jets going by, you know what I'm talking about. So I don't know exactly how close the warship got. But it's your typical cat and mouse game that the Russian Federation lets the U.S. know they're there. So that's what's there. So it more saber rattling than anything. I didn't hear if they did any jamming, but it was the U.S. Donald Cook once again. And we know if last year, I guess it was last year, whatever, the U.S. Donald Cook was buzzed by 2 Su-24s, and they jammed all the signals and fried out some of the electronics on the U.S. Donald Cook. That's the rumor. Again. It's been kind of confirmed and kind of not on that incident, because what happened was you had some generals saying, yes, this happened, and some people apparently from the U.S. Donald Cook didn't want to play anymore and they quit. They wanted to get off that ship pretty quick when they knew that they were sitting duck in the water. And on the other hand, it's denied. So like anything, we never know the whole story. But the thing is the story only seemed to come from the U.S. side. So they wouldn't say that the Russians jammed their electronics and then say, no, they didn't. They would stick with one story or the other. It'd be, no, they didn't at all, or yes, they did. And I can't see the U.S. admitting to that. Nobody, the Russians wouldn't admit to that. If you jam their stuff, our stuff's jam-proof. It's a pissing contest, right? There's no way they're going to. So I don't know if anything came of this incident. I know there was a couple of passes. I don't know exactly how many passes. At least 4 on the video anyway. So they went across the bow. They came up beside. They crisscrossed. And then they put on a bit of an air show, I guess, So that's there. Now, listening to John Kerry, I just hear, all I hear is he's such a dumbass, that guy. Still talking about regime change in Syria. Now it sounds like they're begging. They say, come on, guys, if we can't overthrow you, can you just please leave? That's how John Kerry sounds. Talking about basically splitting up. It's kind of like they're having a conversation with themselves. It's like, yeah, okay, so when we split up Syria, we're going to do this. It's like, it doesn't work like that. There's an opposing force there. That said, the buildups in Libya and Tunisia, I do believe is getting ready for ground forces to go into Libya and stuff like that. Because they're going to have to take back Libya in order to get into Syria. They're going to have to. They're putting U.S. troops on the ground now, and British troops and et cetera, and even Italy is getting their fighter jets ready for airstrikes and stuff like that. And Italy's broke. Again, it's funny how all these countries always have money to go to war, but they never have money to help their people. And funny how that is. You know, it's like, oh no, we're broke, but we're going to go to war. Okay, what does it cost to fight to fly a fighter jet for you know, an hour? I need a CF-18 minimum. This is not including ordnance. It's probably going to cost you about $12,000 an hour just to run that thing. I mean, 600 gallons of fuel. You call bingo fuel. I mean, what are you looking at? $3 a gallon on jet fuel? Maybe $5 a gallon? Who knows? I mean, they're not running off of 85 octane there, right? They're probably running off of 140 or whatever. So that's pretty refined stuff. And you know, what does 6,000 gallons of gas cost, right? Like yeah, that, you know, like that's 600 gallons of that. The insurance, you know, the pilot's the cheap part, really. I mean, yes, his training's expensive, but his hourly wage or whatever his salary is, you know, that's the cheap part. But then the 30 guys you got working on the aircraft for, I mean, a CF-18 for every 1 hour flown is about 12 hours of routine maintenance. That's not including battle damage. So you're talking probably about $12,000 an hour to run a machine like that, you know, parts, labor, and all that stuff. And then, you know, the insurance must be astronomical as well. So, that said, you know, how do these countries that are so broke not be able to, you know, still have enough money for war, you know, like, so this is why I mean, like, governments around the world have failed everywhere. Speaking of failing governments, the Canadian government here, with the deal with Saudi Arabia, it's a $10 or $11 billion LAVs that they're selling to Saudi Arabia. Now, this deal was done under the Conservatives. It was kind of done for General Dynamics in Canada as a, you know, basically exporting a cheat day. I'm down to 170 pounds. Yeah, I've been mainly drinking the small ones, but so General Dynamics is part of our aerospace industry, as well as, you know, pretty much the military machine, right? But General Dynamics is not a Canadian company; it's a U.S. company, right? And I don't know how many LAVs it's going to be in total. I think it might be around. It's a $10 billion, so it's probably around 100 of them or so. And basically, the LAVs are a light armored wheeled vehicle. They're a 6-wheeled vehicle. They have a 25 millimeter main gun. Our versions tend to be a little more beefed up because that's our main thing. So we've kind of Canadianized them like we normally do with any equipment we get from the States. We usually adapt it to us. Now, I don't know what the deal with Saudi Arabia, what features these machines are going to have exactly, but the typical is going to be, you know, 25 millimeter main gun, coaxial 7.62 in there somewhere, and you know, maybe a 50 cal or something on there. Who knows? And then, of course, you know, grenade launchers and stuff like that on. That said, I don't know if they're going to get a Coyote variant and use them as surveillance, you know, reconnaissance. Because our Coyote LAVs, basically, when there's like it's like a wheel-based submarine with a gun on it. It comes up, and you can put it up, and it has FLIR system. It has a incoming warning system for missiles. It has everything. It's a little, well, it's not that little. It's about, you know, machine's about that big. It's got a big camera. You can see several kilometers or miles with it. And again, you got FLIR, you've got night vision, you've got everything on that. So if they're using it in a reconnaissance point, they could probably get away with it if they get that version of the LAV, which is we call a Coyote. Now, if these LAV-3s are used against the civilian population, the Stéphane Dion, the defense minister, said that they would, you know, pull the deal. You know, pull parts of the deal. But the Liberals said they're going to honor the deal. Again, new boss, same as the old boss. Oh, Harper was so bad, but the Liberals, they can kibosh this. But if they do, we're putting a whole bunch of people out of work if we do, right? So they're not going to do that. They have to go through it. And we're putting out high-tech jobs we're putting out. Now, I'm totally against selling anything to Saudi Arabia, let alone buying anything from them. Why? Their human rights record is just atrocious. But this is how dirty governments have become. And we put ourselves in these situations as, you know, selling weapons to people that we shouldn't be arming. Especially the fact that if we ever have to, I mean, arming the people we have to fight in the future might be a long time before Canada ever goes toe-to-toe with Saudi Arabia. But when the U.S. goes toe-to-toe with Saudi Arabia, so do we. Now, at some point, yes, Saudi Arabia gets thrown under the bus. I think they're in the process of it now. in a tug of war between the Houthis and Iran, and on the other side, Russia and stuff like that, and China being kind of neutral because of their investments in Saudi Arabia. So, and plus with Syria. So, with that said, Saudi's got a lot of problems right now, and their main problems are the Houthis, who are backed by Iran. So, if these labs get into combat in those areas and are used against the Houthis, what the Canadian government has to do is prove that the Houthis are terrorists and not just civilians being cracked down on, Shia-Sunni war, right? And that's where I think that's where I think a lot of people are, like, right now, the Liberals don't want this. Right now, so far, all their campaign things are falling apart. The economy's not doing well here. Layoff after layoffs. Interest rates are staying the same in Canada. The Canadian Bank of Canada has decided to keep the interest rates the same. And the Federal Reserve down. I'm going to talk about Janet Yellen in a second there. But I do believe this just kind of shows you how globalism fails, So that's the deal with these labs. They're going to go to Saudi Arabia, but again, what is the Trudeau government going to do when the Saudis, we're not going to use these against the civilians. 5 minutes, the second they're going to fuel these things up, arm them up as soon as they get there. They're not going to buy these things not to shoot at the Houthis. And the good news, I guess, for the Canadian side is it gives us, if the Houthis blow these things up left, right, and center, well, then we know our Canadian soldiers need something better. But if these things can, and they can take a hit. They're not a tank. They're if a T-72 comes around the corner, I remember talking to Canadian Lab crew, which was also a Leopard crew, and they said, well, we're running the Labs mainly because the Leopards are expensive to run, right? And I go, well, what happens if you come around the corner and you meet a T-72? Well, the better crew wins. I said, but can a Lab take out a T-72 with a 25 millimeter main gun? He goes, you got to hit it in the right spot, and you got to be at the right ranges. I said, yeah. So I said, basically, you're basically circling each other, shooting at each other, pretty much. So that's a pretty terrifying thought. Being in a lab with this barrel, it'd be like a scene out of Fury with the Tiger and the Sherman tank circling each other, shooting at each other. Like, how intense would that be? It's like, one hit from the T-72, you're screwed, right? Yeah, but it would be exciting. There was an incident in Iraq where there was reported Iraqi Republican Guard out in the middle of the desert somewhere with T-72s and some BMPs. And this crew goes out there, and there was a Bradley and there was an Abrams in there somewhere, but a bunch of Bradleys were out there, and all of a sudden the guys they just stopped at a random spot, and they're looking through the monocles and say, contact T-72. And the guy's like, I can't see him. I got to. He goes, look down. He looks down. It's like there's a T-72 dug in. They put it sitting there with and they had the 25 mil on there, and it didn't do much to the T-7. They shot it, and they put the Bradley in reverse. So it gives you an idea of what you're up against, right? So definitely not against the tank. So how the Saudis are going to use these vehicles? They can only use them the way we use these. I don't know if the Saudis know that yet. They're going to probably find out the hard way. The Saudi forces don't seem to be too good, so if you're from Saudi Arabia, I'm not putting you down, but they don't put the training the same way. So these vehicles do have vulnerabilities. They're good in, like, say, urban conflict where light arms are used. They might survive the odd RPG hit if you put RPG fences on them and stuff like that. So that's what those things are for. But this deal again is definitely a bad deal for the Liberals. They're saying we're honoring it for the previous government but when do they ever honor anything the previous government did? They're bringing in the long gun registry again. The people don't want it here in Quebec at all. 74% of people don't want it in Quebec, and yet they're bringing it in. Again, government out of touch with the people, completely out of touch. I'll do that on a separate issue too, video for that one. Next to that, I was watching AMTV and a couple of clips of Janet Yellen. Now, Janet Yellen, okay, this is what I think happens, and again, I'm not putting women down, but when you put people into positions of power for political correct purposes, for diversity, for gender equality, all stuff like that, and you put them in there when they're not qualified to be doing the job they're doing. The lady's up there at the podium talking about this great, fantastic, this lady, why is she, I'm not surprised that she's cracking. I'm not surprised that she's taking a nervous breakdown in public. She's just sitting there, and recovery and like this woman, okay, what terrifying things is she trying to hide? You know, she was hired. Her, Ben Bernanke, Alan Greenspan, they're all put there for the same reason: to lie. That's it. They don't make any decisions. They're just telling you what the decisions are, and then they're the face, the puppet in front of the camera to tell you everything's fantastic. Even here in Canada, watching the CBC, and they're saying, "Oh well, we didn't lose the states didn't lose as many jobs as we thought." Like trying to put the spin on it. Well, it's not as bad as you think. You know, it's like, oh well, inflation isn't really that bad. It only went up a little bit, so it's not really. But from 2008 to now, yeah, it's went up a lot. You know, so it's like, okay, it's just people are going to notice at some point. You know, like, but that's what they do, right? But Alan Greenspan, Ben Bernanke, Janet Yellen. So Janet Yellen, okay, she's cracking under pressure clearly. Ben Bernanke, a better liar. Oh no, the economy's fine. The economy's fine, and it crashes. Alan Greenspan, no, this is the right thing to do. The right thing to do, and you know, set us into the 2008 boondoggle, right? And the difference, they're slightly different, but they all have one thing in common. They're all put there as puppets to lie. And the thing is with Janet Yellen, like, okay, yeah, she's clearly taking a nervous breakdown. I mean, is it because she realized the death and destruction that comes out of the next economic collapse, how bad it's really going to be, and the fact that she's going to be responsible for it? Again, I'm prepared to see a mass rash of banker suicides again, but actual real suicides. And I think some of them are real. You know, some of them are real, but also some of them are dead men, dead women tell no tales. So again, we got to watch for that. There are some elites that have been knocked off this year. We know Judge Scalia looks very, very suspicious. The guy for I think it was BP Oil for the fracking king as they called him. I can't remember his name right now. Car blows up on that type of thing. Oh, it was a suicide. You know, it's always a suicide. So things like that. And there was somebody else that got knocked off. Wow, they died. They died. But again, yes, some of these people are old, so it's you know. But when they're in like their 50s and stuff like that, okay, well, yeah, okay, yes, I know people in their 40s that kick the bucket, but you know, it's got there's a realm of believability and possibility and kind of, oh yeah, okay, that's pretty obvious. And it's always prominent. Who are they? You know, who do they represent? That type of thing. Plane crash. I think it was a Saudi airplane again in was it Russia that crashed there a couple of weeks ago? I would like to know the passenger manifesto is probably the first thing you want to look at whenever there's a plane crash, particularly if it involves Russia, Saudi Arabia, U.S., Israel, Iran, any of these countries that are in conflict right now. I bet you out of the passenger manifesto you'll probably find some people that you could be quite coincidental of prominent players, right? So these are things to watch out for. It's not being a conspiracy, just, you know, it's kind of, maybe there's something there, maybe there's not, right? Relevancy, you know. So yeah, the Janet Yellen speech, I didn't get to see, but there was one of those closed-door speeches, just like before 2008, that went on. Barack Obama was there, all of them were there, and you know, we do know that they're really pushing, and same here in Canada, it's the same in all the countries, is the bail-ins are ready to go. They're ready to go. In fact, I think they're already starting them. Just, they're trying to do it in such a way that you can't notice it. And the economy has so much to do with getting us into war. Right now, the student loan thing, they're just working down the list. Okay, well, if you're handicapped, we're going to pay off your loan. If you're poor, you're going to pay off your loan. Basically, it's billions of dollars. It's like almost $1 trillion of student loans that are defaulted. You know, we know the housing market is completely propped up. In Canada, it's basically the Chinese coming in buying all the housing. You know, that's people domestically can't afford to buy houses anymore, and so they're trying to keep the prices artificially high that way. So foreign investment is what they're doing, right? And in the States, it's the same thing where, you know, people that are defaulting on their houses, they're not kicking the people out of the houses. What they're doing is they're just letting them stay there to keep the value up. That type of thing. And they're shadow buying. Basically, the bank buys back the house, puts it, to hold it, to put it on the market for a higher value, buy the house to keep the prices artificially high, right? That type of thing. But that's a bubble. It's just when does it burst? Not if it bursts, but when does it burst? And what Jenga move will happen to start an actual uncontrollable collapse? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, right now the job layoffs all over the place are just and it's all high tech jobs that are going, right? The government jobs aren't really going yet, but people, for example, Newfoundland right now, Newfoundland has always been a have-not province, but their oil sector's hit hard, that type of thing. They're looking to, they have to raise taxes and they have to do austerity and raise taxes at the same time. So again, governments are completely off the deep end for non-representation and mismanagement. Alberta, very devastating out there, what's going on, and it's catching up around, in Ontario, if you have autistic children, for example, they're cutting, up to age 5, okay? Up to age 5, if your kid's autistic at 5 years old and a day, too bad for him. Government's not covering, government's not, of Ontario is not covering that anymore. Completely devastating. So Kathleen Wynne's saying, oh, well, we understand. No, you don't. I can't even understand what it's like to have an autistic child. I can't imagine how hard that would be, let alone how much that would cost, And, yeah, so we're seeing, again, higher taxes, higher cost of living, and less money for your, they're charging you more and you're getting less. Why? Because they're broke. They're broke. That's why this doctor-assisted suicide, it sounds like it's all about morality and ethics and stuff like that and, the right to die. No, it's because the governments are broke. That's why they're pushing it. It's cheaper for them to kill people rather than treat people. You know what I mean? It's a slippery slope. At first, it's people that are, almost on their deathbed anyway. Which people say, well, we can understand, we can empathize with that, we can show compassion. But then it moves down the line. As soon as it's passed, give it 2-3 years, it goes from anybody that's, completely, wants doctor-assisted suicide because their quality of life they're going to die anyway. So make it peaceful for them. Okay, yeah, you can make that. But then 5 years later, it's, well, this person is depressed and they really don't want to live anymore. You know what I mean? That's the way the governments are thinking. It's Agenda 21, Agenda 2030. I will be doing videos on those two subjects very shortly. Well, I say that, but it's like I try to keep up to it as much as I can, right? Yeah, so that's what's happening here. So yeah, people are starting to notice that the wages aren't going up and the austerity is not working. There's austerity whether you vote a left government or right government, people are getting less. And our dollar is dropping. And, that's helping the exports. Yeah, but we can't buy anything. That's the whole thing. We can't buy anything. The good news in all this, there is opportunity. For example, if you do want to buy a vehicle, now's the time to do it because it is cheap to do it. Credit is cheap if you can afford it. But that's one thing. Now, as far as getting back to Iran is taking receivership of the S-300 missile systems. It's a long deal. They're getting it in stages and in parts, right? Because you have to understand the S-300 missile system comprises of a lot of different vehicles. I think there's like 12 or 16 vehicles if you have the whole system. It's kind of like player's cards. You got to get the whole set, right? All cards are cool, but yeah, it's better if you have the whole set. And this takes time to deliver all this. So they're getting this, which puts Iran in another stage of making it harder to deter them from doing whatever it is, nuclear deal or whatever. Now, they're also going to be taking on, and I'm not exactly sure which Sukhoi they're going to be taking on, but just the fact that I said they're taking on Iran's going to be getting some Sukhoi. Not MiGs, I think it's going to be Su-30s. That will give Iran a hell of a leg up, making them very Israel-proof. Yeah, if there's Iranian, okay, maybe not in the first year, but 5 years after Iran's flying their Su-30s, they're going to have some pretty damn good pilots in those things. The Russians have changed their training doctrine for their pilots. Rather than having more pilots, they're putting better quality on their pilots. And of course, the main front fighters right now are the MiG-29s, the newest, like the OVT and the MiG-35s. These are their main lightweight front fighters. And of course, their frontline fighter is the Su-35 SM, I think is the newest one. And the PAC-FAT Su-T50 is going to be a little. It hasn't. That's not its final designation yet because it's not operational in service yet. But that's not that far out. They will have it in the next year or two completely in operational service. Followed by the Su-34, which is basically the Su-34 is like a hyper-steroided version of the Su-24. That was the replacement it was designed to do. However, the Su-39 and the Su-25s, those are pretty much the same airplane. It's just the Su-39 is the tandem seat version and a slightly more advanced version of an SU-25. But those things will still stay ground attack airplanes for a long time yet. However, the high-tech stuff that they are bringing in, there is talk of a new development of a new bomber, a super bomber, probably going to dwarf the size of the Tu-160. I don't have a lot of details on it. I forget what it's going to. It's like the Tu. I can't remember the Tu-155 or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it's going to be called, but it's going to be a more stealthier. It's a futuristic bomber, so we'll have to watch to see how the Russians pull that one off. I don't think we'd see anything for the next 5 years on that, but it's in the works anyway. So with that, the Russians have also, working a lot with their, upgrading their soldiers. Making sure that they got all the modernized suits and all that. They've been doing this now for a couple of months or a couple of years. So that stuff is all starting to integrate into their new system. So basically, the Russians are something like 70% fully modernized. That accounts for a lot. Now that said, Syria, getting back to Syria, you've got all kinds of anti-tank and surface shoulder-fired weapons going to the rebels. The rebels are, again, jumping around from this group to that group. Nothing new there. The only thing is that Assad now is going to be getting more equipment, better equipment. So I think, if anything, the Russians have pretty much put Assad's guys. I'm pretty sure with the training just alone, it would be enough to turn the tide for the Syrians. Next to that, the Battle of Palmyra, where the the ruins are, there was a Russian Spetsnaz soldier there. It was like a 24-hour or 72-hour or 48-hour battle, which I can't remember how long it took him to take that. Did do classic Spetsnaz move and called in artillery on his own position to take out the jihadists. And that there, kind of shows you. That's the reason why I look at it. It's not so much, this guy's a hero, this guy's a hero. I look at it as that's the mentality you're dealing with. And if a guy, 18, 19, 20 years old, however old he was willing to sacrifice himself for somebody else's nation, like why would a Russian give a shit about a Syrian nation? Why would they care at all? But if they're willing to sacrifice themselves that much for that nation, imagine what they're willing to do for their own. That is the kind of shows you the Napoleonic version versus Russia kind of mentality right there. If we can't have it, nobody can, and that's I think the mentality when we're dealing with the Russians that you have to consider, that they'll take you with them. They'll take you with them, and they have the firepower to do it. So the point is that getting into toe-to-toe with Russia, we won't win. There is no winners in these fights. So to try to get them, to provoke them into a war is a real bad idea. I'm not saying they would win. The thing is, I don't think anybody wins. That's the thing. They make sure, okay, well, we're going to lose Russia, hit the button. That's what they do. It's a spite move. I'm like that, It's like, if I knew I was going down, I'd take you with me. I'm just saying, you're coming with me, you bastard. Yeah. I'd be more happy to watch you suffer than care about me going out. You know what I mean? Like that type of thing. I'm spiteful that way. And that's the mentality I think they're taking. So we'll have to watch more what's going on. I don't think at this point the U.S. can really get a successful invasion into Syria without direct conflict with Russia. Russia is still in there. They got attack helicopters in there now. I think what they're doing is the cleanup. The sweep, okay, all the high altitude stuff, they can still call in airstrikes when they need. But they've got the positions now to hold that they don't need as many airstrikes. They can call in close support helicopters and stuff like that, which takes it to a whole new level. That's getting pretty surgical once you go from dropping 500-pound bombs to firing 80-millimeter rockets. Then they're closing in on the kill. You know what I mean? They're getting there. That said, how are they going to get Assad out of there? I don't know when Assad has agreed to the election, but it's like, he's been saying all along, if the Syrian people want him gone, they'll vote him out. So that type of thing. As far as the chemical attacks, again, guess who? Friendly neighborhood ISIS was using that. I was talking to a friend last week, and she's kind of aware of what's going on. Still not fully aware because, again, doesn't follow the things I do, that type of thing. And I do have a friend in the military that is over there now, with the Kurds, that type of thing. And, I wonder how much people know sometimes, but people, like, even her, like we didn't agree on everything, obviously, because she doesn't know everything I know. I'm not saying she's wrong, but, she's still listening to CNN. She's still listening to the mainstream stuff. I don't know how much alternative stuff she listens to, that type of thing. But she's aware of what's going on and stuff like that. So, which gave me hope, because it's like, okay, well, you don't know the whole, doesn't understand Zionism yet, doesn't understand, Israel's role in all the Greater Israel Project and stuff like that. She doesn't understand that stuff yet, because that's never going to make it onto the mainstream media, right? But how am I doing for time? But the thing is that people are awakening. They're getting on to the idea that these wars are a scam. But they're still in that, well, we got to stop ISIS. But the thing is you got to lead them to the, hey, ISIS wouldn't exist if they weren't funded by the U.S. and Israel. And it's so openly admitted now. There's just no argument against it. It's just, it's hiding in plain view. It's hiding in plain view. You can track it. Heck, you have Mossad generals saying, yeah, we created these ass clowns. You know what I mean? And they're getting punished for it. That type of thing. So at some point, it's going to come full circle. Now, something I noticed when I was a kid, and I always said, what happens when you take refugee A and refugee B from a war-torn country that were fighting each other back then and bring them in the masses in your country, and, when do they start fighting here? Well, protests in Germany between the Turks and the Kurds have been going on, and they've been clashing, I guess, pretty much all week. Not much coverage on it there, but it is out there. And I'm like, there you go. So now you're going to get this clash in Germany on top of the, what I call the 10th Crusade going on. And that's starting to play out. Now, as the weather is getting warmer, obviously more, masses are coming in. The one-for-one deal between Turkey, you take one illegitimate refugee, bring them back to Turkey, and we'll give you one legitimate refugee. Now, Turkey's fully on board with this for one reason. As soon as the illegitimate person gets there, they kick them out of the country. So they're basically what they're going to say. Well, we'll take it. Well, you're not a refugee, so go back to your own country. So they kick them out of the country. So where do you think they're going to go? Go back to their home country or go back into Europe? You know what I mean? So yeah, Turkey's really scamming this one big time. The shelling into Armenia and stuff like that, and Transnistria, that's hard enough to say. That I'm still watching what's going on there, but it does look like George Soros's goons are, funding. There was a protest. It was like 200 people. Your typical useful idiots. They got cracked down on, and that was the beginning. So it's, I guess, like a new version of the Arab Spring. Speaking of Arab Spring, we now have this thing called Democracy Spring, which is get money out of politics. Cenk Uygur was arrested. I didn't follow too much there, but guess who's funding this one again? I'll give you one guess. Probably that's all you need. Yes, George Soros seems to be funding. Christopher Green brought that up on RT, apparently from AMTV News. And I did see the video, but he said it was pulled down from RT. So, again, RT is kind of funny. If you watch RT News and watch RT America, the RT America is very leftist. It's very anti-gun. It's very pro-Bernie Sanders and stuff like that. So if it's pro-Bernie Sanders, it's pretty much going to be going along with George Soros. So I don't know how much infiltration George Soros has on RT. I don't think he has that much. But they never call him out. This is one thing that worries me about Russia. If they are really truly the good guys, the easiest person they could possibly name is the Israeli government. They could oust them right away, saying all these wars are bankers' wars for Israel. They do get 90% of the way, and then they cut off there. And you see this amongst some of the so-called neocons out there that are not full. They're not fully Zionist, but they'll never cross that Rubicon of going into the Zionist territory. They're too scared to. But you have to. You have to call it the evil where you find it. If you're going to call it radical Islam, you got to call it Zionism. They're both radical ideologies, and that type of thing. So you have to call it out. I have no fear of calling that out. And if anybody asks me what it is, I'll tell them. You know what I mean? You have to do your research. It's again the Protocols of Zion, the Greater Israel Project. Look at the Samson option. Then tell me if you really want to defend Israel after that. There you go. And again, I'm not against the Israeli people, I'm not against Jewish people. I don't care about that. I care about the evil Zionists that are running things. That's what I care, the bankers and stuff like that. Now, next to that, it looks like Ted Cruz won forget which state it was there, by basically democratic, how do we put this now? Democratic decision, not democratic vote, I guess. It's like, okay, well, no, we're going to close all the polls so nobody can vote. Oh, he won. And now you have people that are long core establishment, long time, we're talking people in their 60s, whatever. People that never change their voting patterns ever. Burning up their GOP cards or whatever. It's a little different in Canada. Here we don't have a registered thing. Here you just show up and you vote. You make your decision there. That type of thing. So it's a little different than how they do it in the States. But the thing is their voter cards, people are like burning their GOP voter cards. Now this could be done on purpose to get Hillary Clinton to win. Why? Because again, people don't vote for people, they vote against people. And because of that, and it's the same in every country. They usually vote against people. And nobody, only idiots vote for somebody. You know what I mean? Usually, when we're talking. There can be exceptions to the rule. But for most of the part, you're never, there's nobody you like. Like, same in Canada. Nobody votes. People didn't vote for Trudeau, they voted against Harper. People don't vote for Harper, they vote against Trudeau. You know what I mean? That type of thing. People didn't vote for Trudeau and Harper, they voted against Tom Moncaire. You know what I mean? That's the way it works, right? And so the thing is you've got these people that, have completely been abandoned by the GOP party. Not because they don't believe their stances or whatever, but it's the slap to the face of so-called democracy. And remember, the United States is not a democracy. It is a republic. And here in Canada, we're colonial, you know what I mean? So, we're a colony. And, yeah, we use democracy, yeah. But I wouldn't call us a democracy either. We're not really a democracy. The closest to a democracy is Switzerland with their direct democracy, which I wish would be installed here. I think that would be the best way to go in a way, because at least you could undo bad decisions, every couple of months or whatever. That type of thing, rather than voting for people to think for you for 4 years at a time. So there's that. Now the next thing is that with Donald Trump was pretty mad about having Ted Cruz vote. I mean, if anything's going to shoot Ted Cruz dead in the water, that's it. I mean, you have to play fair. So the idea of all these people going out pre-voting to get their guy, even if they were voting against Donald Trump, it's just the lack of democracy. Like, even if you were a Democrat looking at that, you wouldn't say that's what you want, because if they're going to do that on that side, they might be doing it on your side. So say you're a huge Bernie Sanders supporter, which you shouldn't be. He's a Trotskyite communist. If you think Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030 are bad, he's full bore for that. He's a Trotskyite. He's an openly admitted Trotskyite. And if you know how Trotskyites work, not too good. Not too good at all in history. Yes, you will be put up in the wall and shot at some point. He's communist. He's openly communist. Yes, he's saying the right things about the banks, but you can't go with the buzzwords. Trudeau did it up here. Yes, in Canada, better is always possible. Very true, but not under him. Trudeau was just not believable for me. Said a lot of good things, had some ideas I even thought were good, but his delivery, no. I agree, yes. Yes, the infrastructure here in Canada, before we worry about building new things, let's take care of the crap that we can't afford already. Sure, I agree with you. But to go billions of dollars into deficit from a balanced budget, no. Do that from a balanced budget point of view. Switch things around. Cut things here. Put the work over there. Cut some foreign aid. Like that type of thing. So, yeah. And again, with all the cuts that they're making in Canada, and then we see all these refugees coming in and getting all these free stuff, really not sitting well with people, I don't think. Well, we'll have to wait and see what happens there. I digress. So, yeah, if you were to somehow get Ted Cruz, okay, that puts you in massive conflict. I'm not saying a nuclear war with Ted Cruz, but definitely intense times for sure. And more conflict. Women, yes, you are going to die on the front lines. You're going to get your guts blown out with equality on the battlefield. And I don't know if that's going to be before you get raped or after you get raped by the enemy. Why? Because there is no gender equality on a battlefield. I don't even wish that on men, let alone women. That said, if you get Hillary Clinton, you're still going to war. But the thing with Hillary Clinton, you're going to a nuclear war because of her stance on Russia. She's insane. With Bernie Sanders, you'll get an economic collapse. There's no doubt about that, and mismanagement of the economy. So you're going to get rioting and stuff like that. With Hillary Clinton, you will get civil war, race war, and a nuclear war. With Donald Trump, you might get definitely a lot of uprisings and protests and stuff like that, even possible to a civil war or at least race war type status. Civil war and a race war, yeah, they're similar, but they're not the same. One's fighting over race, one's fighting over the ideology of the country, that type of thing. So with Donald Trump, but you won't have a nuclear war. So at least you can, as things calm down, you'll survive it. Ted Cruz could get you into a nuclear war, but I don't know. Actually, tell you the truth, you probably wouldn't get a civil war under Ted Cruz. I don't even think you would get a race war under Ted Cruz. I think there would be a lot of uprisings, but I think in that sense. But the problem is you get into foreign wars, Israeli, domestic, U.S. foreign policy, banker wars, all over the place. So a lot more mini wars, like you'd be into Asia, you'd be into the rest of the Middle East, you'd be all South America, you'd be getting into South America. Just look at what his stance is on foreign policy. He loves death and destruction. He's a neocon through and through. And and plus anything Israel wants, Ted Cruz will get on his knees and blow for it. You know what I mean? Like that's he's a snake. It's too bad. It's too bad because he did have some good ideas, but no, he would be very devastating to the country. Healthcare, there would be no healthcare at all. Yes, he'd probably get rid of Obamacare, sure, but he would replace it with nothing. And you can't, you got to take care of your people. You got to take care of your people. I mean, heck, here in Canada, we take care of our people a little bit better, but not to the degree that we can. The governments around the world have failed all the people. Now, over in Europe, the migrant crisis is going to get a lot worse there. The soldiers of Odin are now into 24 countries. They went from 4 or 5 countries very quickly. Only in a couple of months, they're now established in 24 European countries. Yeah, think about that. Isn't that almost all of Europe? That's almost all of them. How big? I don't know. I know the neighboring countries from Finland, they're getting bigger, and they're getting a lot of support. They could turn into a political party at some point. Give it 2-3 years, sure. Sweden's a disaster. It is. The politicians are still, alienating the people and refugee this, refugee that. Here in Canada, same thing. Everything for the refugees, screw the people. Look, here in Canada, okay, just the last past couple of weeks, okay, we've got, and I don't fault the Syrian so-called, they're economic migrants, they're not really refugees. The thing is they see a system that is set up to take advantage of. You would do the same. You would do the same. These people are coming in. Most of them are fairly well dressed, good shoes. They got cell phones. If you're from the third world and you can afford a cell phone, you know what I mean. I don't know what the service rates would be over there, but if you could afford a cell phone, how bad off are you? You know what I mean. That type of thing. So they're coming in here. They're getting stuff that Canadians can't get. They're getting free dental care. They're getting free schooling and everything paid for. Eye care, you name it, they need it. They got it. And I've seen what they're getting as a startup and stuff like that. They're getting a few grand to start up. These loans that they're going to pay back. How are they going to pay back loans? They don't even have work yet. How are they going to pay back loans? They're getting in front of the bus on other legal migrants and stuff like that. And you see the government people taking them out to go skiing in Whistler and stuff like that. Meanwhile, out of Wapiskat, you got a suicide pact amongst. It's all in the news now. They don't even have running water there. I mean, that. So the government's more concerned about the Syrian refugees, to look politically correct, than taking care of its own people. You got, I forget the other reserve, you got people that can't afford freaking laundry soap and their kids are getting little freaking tick bites all over them. Yet we're giving how many millions of dollars into these refugees? You know what I mean? So why are we bringing anybody in? We can't even take care of the people we got here. So what they're doing with them is they're just bribing liberal voters right there. That's what they're doing. And people are starting to see this, and they're like, "No, Canada first. Canada first. Screw the refugees. Yes, we got to get out of the Middle East. There's no doubt about that. We just got to leave it. It's insolvent. We got to leave it. The mess was made. What's done is done. Let the tribal lines reestablish in the Middle East. It'll calm down a bit. But we do have to protect our borders. In Europe as well. It is so crucial that we do that, because if we don't, Again, you now have, on top of the far-right groups, which are now being blamed for murder, a little bit of, I don't know if I've already retracted on this, but there was a far-right protest in Belgium, and it got, obviously got pretty rough, and somebody ran over a Muslim girl. I mean, I don't know if she lived or not, because they hit her pretty hard with the darn car, just bang, laid her up. And of course, right away the media, it was the far-right group, Turned out both guys were like Mohammeds. One guy was Mohammed for sure, the other guy they were Middle Eastern guys, they weren't far-right protesters. They ran over and probably killed one of their own, and to blame it on. So now you got all these far-right protesters who are being cracked down on by their own government. Okay. Meanwhile, you have Kurds and Turks pretty much, the police are there to kind of keep a bit of order, but they're not disbanding them like they are the far-right groups. So the government is cracking down on the far-right groups, their own indigenous citizens. They're now accusing them of murder without retracting false statements, or attempted murder, whatever happened to that poor girl. So now you really have just set a hard line. So moderate, concerned about their country and the liberty of their country, is now turned to nationalist, okay? Which nationalist is okay. So nationalist is still worried about the migrant crisis. They just want it to stop. They just want things to go back to normal. They want to get out of the Middle East. All that thing. Police crack down on them. Now they're ultra-nationalists. Now they're really hardcore. Kick them all out. Send them home. I don't give a shit what happens to them. Now you're accusing them of murder. They're now going to be neo-Nazis or extreme nationalists. That's how it's going to work. That's how it works. Radical begets radical. So that said, that's what to watch out for in Europe. It is getting very, very, very tense. The amount of protests going on, I can't follow them all. And I'm not saying there hasn't always been protests, but the numbers, it's the numbers and the scope and the magnitudes of them. It's like, and none of it on the mainstream media. It's kind of like, it is a perfect Titanic scenario. I guess I'm going to have to wrap this up, but where you have complete, utter cognitive dissonance that the ship is sinking. It's hit the iceberg. It hit the iceberg pretty damn hard. Right now, the water's coming over the bow, right? And the band is still playing. It's still playing, and the band would be the mainstream media. They're still playing a lovely song. Nothing is wrong. This lovely song is calling Nothing is Wrong, Nothing to See Here. That's the name of the song. And it's just not working. The water is still coming over the bow. But the problem is the people who are smart enough to get into the lifeboats recognize this. The rest, who can't accept the reality around them, 1,500 people drowned on the Titanic, right? Or 1,100 out of the 1,500 or whatever it was. Only a handful of people were smart enough to get into the boats. Why? Because even though they didn't want to believe that the Titanic could go down, they knew it was a possibility. If it did go down, okay, by nightfall, okay, here's what we'll do. We'll just go back on the ship, but once, be in the lifeboat before that then. Most of the lifeboats were empty from the Titanic. Yeah, most of the lifeboats were empty because of people's cognitive dissonance that there was nothing wrong. Nothing can ever harm us. Well, Europe is in the same position. The world is in the same position. And with Janet Yellen's kind of, oh my God moments, kind of mental breakdown there, that's telling me that they know. So what does she know that we don't, right? Well, we kind of know what it is. It's just when's it going to be and how bad. So the other thing is how are they going to start the war? They're going to have to do it. People will, the pitchfork revolution on this one, people get your food, I can't stress that enough, because we don't know the date and time. They've kicked the can down the road this far. But at some point, people are just going to start to notice that they're too damn poor. That's why they're opening up the borders, is for dilution. But I don't think it's really going to work. It's just not going to work. It's just going to be a massive clash everywhere. So we're starting to see the rumblings of it in the past couple of years. It's starting to ramp up. So anyway, that's my take on things for now. I guess I'll leave it at that. So if you like this kind of content, please consider making a donation to the channel. Links down below. Thank you so much to everybody who has. Next to that, if you want to make a couple of bucks for yourself, you can check out my TSU link. It's down below. It works a lot like Facebook. Really easy to do. Doesn't cost you anything. I'm over $6 now. $6? Oh yeah. Not going to spend it all in one spot either. Link down below. So TSU link. Definitely. I'm having fun. You can share pictures, memes, and all that stuff. Videos. Next to that, rate, subscribe. Share, comment, like. You can check out my my Facebook WW3 updates It's just basically this video there, and then you can go, you can post links and stuff like that. I sometimes have a hard time getting the links off. The Facebook one is kind of weird, but you know, if you want to post links there and stuff like that, and I thank you guys when you do. I can't follow all the links, but post. I really ask if you could post it. I don't mind getting them private messages, but sometimes I just can't get to them. So rather, because I mean, the message is much more important than the man. I don't care if I'm the guy telling you the first, breaking news. I don't care. As long as you get the story. So if you post links for everybody to see it, share it. I really would appreciate that. Just because, I'll incorporate it into the video if I find it for sure, and I usually do. But if I miss it, it's like, hey, Reg, you missed this. Hello. But again, some days I get like 1,500 comments a day, which, I mean, thank you, but, you can't follow that, right? So it is what it is. Heck, YouTube can't even follow it. You know what I mean? Like they're, approve all these links, and it's like half the links you approve you never get to see because it's just like, you're going to get this many. You'll get the root link and all the replies to that link you won't get, you know what I mean? You have to go to the video and find it, and some videos have quite a few comments, you'd never find them. So yeah, post it for everybody else to see too. On Twitter, I just put this video there just to get it out in front of a different audience. Not RegMe2 at Twitter. It's either not RegMe or not RegMe2 at Twitter. I kind of forget. I never tweet anything but other than this video, the World War III videos. But you can go there too if you want to follow that. But you'll just be following this video. But next slide. Other than that, okay, did all my little thing. Okay, yeah, be true to yourself, be true to others, always do the right thing, and have yourselves a great day. G'day, hi, and welcome. World War III update. I don't have much here, but keeping things, keeping the information current or whatever. But before we get into that, I want to talk about yesterday's road rage incident that happened to me. I went up to do file my taxes. They're all done. Get money back, so that's good. And my brother and I, we went to get some dog food for my dog Lacey. And when I backed in, okay, there was a parking spot. I backed into the parking spot. Everything was good. And then we went in to get the food. We come out, and here's this freaking delivery truck parked right in front of the van like that. Like, literally, the nose of the van was here, and he was parked here, right? So I'm like, hey, there's a whole bunch of other spots he could have parked. Like, there was like 4 rows right there, nobody parked there. He could have blocked that, right? But no, he blocks me. So you know what he does? Okay, you know what he does. So I pull up my camera, and he says, this is why I get road rage in the road rage van, right? So he sees me with my camera up, and he's like, hey, bud, do you want me to move my truck? I was like, it's okay, well, whatever, take your time. So, no problem, so he jumps in the truck. He's like, sorry about that. I'm like, okay, sorry about that. And he goes, can you imagine that? Can you imagine that guy being like that to me? What a freaking Canadian. Sometimes, I don't know how I could live in this country. I really don't. It's an outrage. Like, it was an outrage. So anyway, I waved to him. He said, we waved back, we smiled, and away we went, So yeah, complete Canadian road rage there. You got to watch out for that stuff. But it was a good day out on the road. So I thought, okay, well, the world's perfect. The sun is shining. It's in the pluses now. I get home and I turn on RT and, SU-24s buzz the Donald Cook again. They got some really good footage this time. You can see it on the RT there. They're coming in the Soviet J patterns and across the bow. And, they come in really damn close. Like, I got to say that I know that when they buzzed the Halifax about a year ago, a Canadian frigate, they came in pretty darn close to it too. I bet you feel the heat off the wingtips going by. Definitely the engines, but you definitely feel the heat off the wingtips going by. If you've been close to fighter jets going by, you know what I'm talking about. So I don't know exactly how close the warship got. But it's your typical cat and mouse game that the Soviets let the Russian Federation lets the U.S. know they're there. So that's what's there. So it, more saber rattling than anything. I didn't hear if they did any jamming, but it was the U.S. Donald Cook once again. And we know if last year, I guess it was last year, whatever, the U.S. Donald Cook was buzzed by 2 Su-24s, and they jammed all the signals and fried out some of the electronics on the U.S. Donald Cook. That's the rumor. Again, it's been kind of confirmed and kind of not on that incident, because what happened was you had some generals saying, yes, this happened, and some people apparently from the U.S. Donald Cook didn't want to play anymore, and they quit. They wanted to get off that ship pretty quick when they knew that they were sitting duck in the water. And on the other hand, it's denied. So, like anything, we never know the whole story. But the thing is the story only seemed to come from the U.S. side. So they wouldn't say that the Russians jammed their electronics and then say, no, they didn't. They would stick with one story or the other. It'd be, no, they didn't at all, or yes, they did. And I can't see the U.S. admitting to that. No, nobody, the Russians wouldn't admit to that. If you jam their stuff, our stuff's jam-proof. It's a pissing contest, right? There's no way they're going to. So I don't know if anything came of this incident. I know there was a couple of passes. I don't know exactly how many passes. At least 4 on the video anyway. So they went across the bow. They came up beside. They crisscrossed. And then they put on a bit of an air show, I guess, So that's there. Now, listening to John Kerry, I just hear, all I hear is he's such a dumbass, that guy. Still talking about regime change in Syria. Now it sounds like they're begging. They're saying, come on, guys, if we can't overthrow you, can you just please leave? That's how John Kerry sounds. Talking about basically splitting up. It's kind of like they're having a conversation with themselves. Like, it's like, yeah, okay, so when we split up Syria, we're going to do this. It's like, it doesn't work like that. There's an opposing force there. That said, the buildups in Libya and Tunisia, I do believe is getting ready for ground forces to go into Libya and stuff like that. Because they're going to have to take back Libya in order to get into Syria. They're going to have to. They're putting U.S. troops on the ground now, and British troops and et cetera, et cetera. And even Italy is getting their fighter jets ready for airstrikes and stuff like that. And Italy's broke. Again, it's funny how all these countries always have money to go to war, but they never have money to help their people. And funny how that is. It's like, oh no, we're broke, but we're going to go to war. Okay, what does it cost to fight to fly a fighter jet for an hour? I need a CF-18 minimum. This is not including ordnance. It's probably going to cost you about $12,000 an hour just to run that thing. I mean, 600 gallons of fuel. You call bingo fuel. I mean, what are you looking at? $3 a gallon on jet fuel? Maybe $5 a gallon? Who knows? I mean, they're not running off of 85 octane there, right? They're probably running off of 140 or whatever. So that's pretty refined stuff. And what does 6,000 gallons of gas cost, right? Like that's 600 gallons of that. The insurance, the pilot's the cheap part, really. I mean, yes, his training's expensive, but his hourly wage or whatever his salary is, that's the cheap part. But then the 30 guys you got working on the aircraft the CF-18 for every 1 hour flown is about 12 hours of routine maintenance. That's not including battle damage. So you're talking probably about $12,000 an hour to run a machine like that, parts, labor, and all that stuff. And then, the insurance must be astronomical as well. So, that said, how do these countries that are so broke not be able to, still have enough money for war, So, this is why I mean, governments around the world have failed everywhere. Speaking of failing governments, the Canadian government here, with the deal with Saudi Arabia, it's a $10 or $11 billion LAVs that they're selling to Saudi Arabia. Now, this deal was done under the Conservatives. It was kind of done for General Dynamics in Canada as a, basically exporting a cheat day. I'm down to 170 pounds. Yeah, I've been mainly drinking the small ones, but so General Dynamics is part of our aerospace industry, as well as pretty much the military machine, right? But General Dynamics is not a Canadian company; it's a U.S. company, right? And I don't know how many LAVs it's going to be in total. I think it might be around. It's a $10 billion, so it's probably around 100 of them or so. And basically, the LAVs are a light armored wheeled vehicle. They're a 6-wheeled vehicle.